Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ here, your host. Tonight I'm going to talk about the narcissist's sense of entitlement. And I say narcissist, but as usual, it's pretty much a core trait to all of the cluster Bs. So, what does it mean, sense of entitlement? You probably already know, but basically, the narcissist or cluster B person believes, almost like he or she sees him or herself as royalty and everybody else is below them. And this, surprisingly, exists even if, for example, the narcissist is, let's say, poor. Let's say they don't have very much money. They still believe that they are superior to everyone else. They just think that, well, I'll be rich one day, and they think or act like they know better than anyone else. They, of course, know it all and cannot be given any type of suggestions for improvement. And as I saw in another video, you can test if someone's really one of these people, or at least a good indicator is to ask them something like, so, what about yourself do you feel you could improve to make yourself into a better person? Something like that. And they usually won't have, they might say something superficial like, I wish my nose was a little longer, or I wish my hair was a little thicker, or something, but it won't be. It's like, no, nothing physical. What about you and your personality? Think needs that could use improvement. And they won't have an answer. Or if they do, it might be like people do on job interviews and say, I just wished I didn't care so much about others, or something like that. But anyway, that's a good test. But back to entitlement. You will not necessarily know that the person you're involved with has this sense or feels this sense of entitlement because look at what you're dealing with. See, that's why if you're listening to this now and you're hearing this thinking, oh, well, the person I'm with, they don't feel that way. Well, listen on. Because what often is the case is what you're dealing with is a cluster B disordered person, and they're not going to say, hi, nice to meet you, by the way, I have disorders. No, they are going to be the most normal acting, nicest, courteous person you've ever come across. In fact, when they go through their love bombing stage, if you've been selected as the next target or one of the next targets, you'll notice how selfless they seem, how totally selfless, and how they'll go out of their way at any time, and even to the point if you're an empath, you might start to feel guilty to think, well, I have never done anything like that for him or her. I can't accept it. Oh, and if you say that, they'll be like, oh no, this is just who I am, and you'll think, wow, because they're so different. It almost to me is like when you're a kid and you live at home with mommy and daddy, and let's say you have a spoiling grandmother, and Granny comes and picks you up and takes you to her house, and she gives you candy and cookies and cakes and all kinds of stuff that you love, everything that you love that mommy and daddy won't let you have. Well, you will learn to think, wow, I want to go back to Granny's house. Well, they use that same type of technique or strategy when they're love bombing you, because the fact of the matter is they're a fake, they're a fraud, they know it, and they know their time is limited. They know that they've got to hurry up and pull the wool over your eyes and distract you with all the love and flowers and attention so you don't realize what's going on, because they know once you find out what they're really about, you'll be out the door. So they like try to skip things. Like in a real relationship, if I meet you today and we go out together once, it might be a week. Maybe a week from now I see you again, we hang out a little bit, and then maybe one night I'm stranded somewhere and I say, help, I need help. Can you help? And you say, sure, I'll be there, and you're there. Well, I mean, those types of things build an impression of people. So, but these people, they don't have time for that. So if you mention someone lying to you or being disloyal to you, they don't have time to prove to you, so they'll just say, oh, I'd never be disloyal to you. Oh, I'd never lie to you. Oh, I would never betray you. And it's like, that's talk. Talk is cheap. But that's a clue, because they want to skip the actual time that in a regular, normal situation you would have like encounter here, a week later, encounter here, maybe a month later, another encounter where every single time the person could be held to their word, and you would then decide on your own, oh, well, that's a trustworthy friend. But these don't have time for all that. They're like after the first, second date, oh, you can always trust me. And it's like, well, nice try, but that has to be proven. But they want to skip all those steps. Remember, they're treating you like that spoiling grandmother. Any chance they're looking for that they can do any type of thing that they know you would want, any hint you give about anything, you may be together one time and say, oh, let's stop here and get this kind of candy bar, and you buy some kind of candy bar and eat it. Well, then you'll notice that maybe the next time you see him, I brought you something, and it's a gigantic version of that candy bar or something. They do those kinds of things which are way over the top and make you feel like you're that child at Granny's house again. And sometimes we're intoxicated by that tension, thinking, wow, and then you heard that thing about entitlement, and you think, well, I'm glad that doesn't apply to my relationship. I've got a great partner, yeah. Well, guess what? That's the way these people lure in the targets, because they have underneath all this and hidden, and which they will probably never tell you, this deeply felt sense of entitlement. So probably what the deal is, let's say you're rich and it's poor, it feels that you're just some stupid rich person. He deserves to have you, so he's going to get you. So he does all that stuff, but you're like put under a spell. And secretly, at night, if it's alone, it's thinking, I'm working this one, it's working. And they feel so proud because they know the truth is that if you really knew what they were up to, you would probably never even have spent the first evening or a day with them. And that gives a thrill, too, because remember, they're thrill seekers. So that makes them think, yes, I'm getting away with something. Yes, this person would hate me if he or she knew what I was really about. And that's the types of joy these people will get. Underneath all this is the real monster involved. And, of course, you won't see that at first, especially at the beginning. They're testing. Sometimes they'll push just a little bit this way or just a little bit that way. And if you react in like an offended manner, they'll be like, oh, I was kidding, or they'll learn, okay, that one didn't work, and they're like constantly shifting. They're like a computer in there thinking, okay, which technique should I use? Which strategy should I use? And you're just thinking you're with a normal, regular person who just happens to like you, but that is not the case. And the sense of entitlement, what that involves, which you, again, don't see, this usually comes out later. Once you've, let's say, decided to spend more and more time together with this person, well, you start giving up some of your other social contacts. You may stop doing things you used to do before just in favor of staying with this person who's so friendly to you, and you like become isolated together. And eventually, when you're that close to someone for that long, cracks are going to show, and they do. But the problem is when a crack starts to show, which is some strange person calls and leaves a message, and you notice the person sneaking off and acting like nothing happened, and or just anything goofy or strange, you'll be thinking, and your intuition will be like, he's up to something. And then when you ask, of course, oh, and there'll be some retarded excuse, and you'll want to believe it. But once these discrepancies start to pop up, other things start to pop up, and you start to basically develop a whole different file in your mind of who you're really dealing with, because the things and rules you make together, for example, he probably or she initiates because it's a form of control for you. So the narcissist is usually a whore but doesn't want you to know this, so they'll switch and they'll put a mask on saying, oh, I can't stand those whores out there. I could never be that way. Could you? They're trying to impression manage themselves so that you will latch on to the value system they're giving, which is to control you, because as soon as they leave your house, he or she's going off to one of his little secret sex toy people and will, of course, not ever admit it. So the sense of entitlement here was reflected in that, because like if you're out together at the movies and somebody walks by and smiles, he might say, you better not smile at any other guys, and act jealous. Yet the truth is, which you don't know about, is that day, that afternoon, he was with two different ladies rolling around on the floor nude, but you didn't need to know about it because of what? The sense of entitlement. If somebody were to tap him on the shoulder and say, what do you mean yelling at her for looking at someone in public? You just did that with those two women, and he'll be like, she doesn't need to know it, therefore it didn't happen. And that's how they operate. It's like a baby, a child, because it's not a genuine relationship, because genuine relationship would be two people getting to know each other over a slow period with factual information being exchanged, and getting to actually feel closer based on real information. With these people, they spend all their effort covering up what they are, trying to convince you they are the fake persona they've created for you based on you. It's custom made. So whatever values you've expressed, they're going to pretend to have, but they don't get it quite right because they might claim, like if you're like a person who believes in not littering, they might say, oh, I would never litter either, but then you find out about some ticket they got for a huge mess they did on purpose where they poured a bunch of chemicals into some pool or something, but you'll see things that don't fit and you'll get the idea, maybe he's putting me on for this. But if you confront them and say, you know what, I don't think you are really like that, well, that's when he or she will become the victim immediately and say, I can't believe you would say that. And if you point out, well, what about this instance here, it'll be, that was only because of, and there'll be a retarded following to that sentence. But the thing with the sense of entitlement is it eventually rears its ugly head. Because eventually when you find out about those two women that afternoon, you'll be like, wait a minute. You were so strongly against the idea of me even looking at somebody, but you were with the two ladies that afternoon? What? And they know it's wrong, they know it's sick, and they know it's twisted, but they don't think you're supposed to know any of this. How dare you find out that they did it? And so there's where the sense of entitlement comes in, because with a regular person, if they truly did something wrong, like if it's a regular non-cluster bead couple, and let's say they both agree, the man says, well, I'm not going to look at any other girls in a sexual way, and you say, well, I'm not going to look at any men either, and you both agree, well, if he does find himself nude in some whirlpool at the no-tell motel, well, a regular person would realize, oh my goodness, I broke my own rule. Oh, and they try to make it up to you for the rest of their life. But with the cluster B, it'll be, well, so what? I was with those two girls. Big deal. You didn't come home that one night. Or something. And it's like not even discussed. That's cluster B. That means leave. Because if you discuss it, it's the basic underlying message is from them, the narcissist cluster B is, you're like a fly they want to swat away. When you're saying, hey, you made a big deal about this, and then you did, they want to swat you away because they don't feel you have any right. It's like you're, again, below them and their royalty, and how dare you question the king or queen when it's something you both talked about? But anyway, the sense of entitlement is very frustrating, and they won't normally tell you, I am able to do this, but you're not. They will just do it, you'll catch it, and instead they'll just try to shoo the argument away and blame it on you. It's your fault because you're not around me enough. If you were around more, I wouldn't have done it. And that kind of crap, which is phony. Don't stick around, because remember, it only gets worse.
I am the narcopath. I am here tonight to tell you some things you never knew when we were together.
Look, I don't know who they were, but I am the narcopath, and all I'm trying to do is get my 15 minutes of fame. I tried the Wheel of Fortune 3 times, and I was rejected. So I decided to try something different this time.
I know I've said a lot of things I didn't mean, just as you have. But let me ask you one question. You know I've never lied to you, don't you? You know that I would never lie to you. Please.
Please. Stop. Human cloning. This is like my 10th body, and I am sick of it.